All right, guys, for today's workout, we're going to do something a little bit different. This is more of a recovery workout. It's stretching, it's some easy calves, easy forearm stuff, but we want to get as much out of this as we can. I'm a big fan of doing multitasking, doing as many things as possible, and trying to get as much out of what you're currently doing in order to maximize your time. I know you guys are busy, probably not as busy now, but we want to get as much done in a short period of time as possible. For me personally, what I choose to do, I grab my Kindle or just turned off, my Kindle, or I grab a book, and what I'll do is I'll find a stretch that feels a little bit tacky for me, and I'll just hang out in that stretch. I'll read for a little while. I'll work on some breathing exercises. To be honest, I usually would not at all be wearing a shirt, or I try to wear as little as I possibly can. It's something along the lines of 91% of the U.S. population is vitamin D deficient, and the 9% that is not vitamin D deficient is currently mowing your lawn or fixing your roof, or they're doing some type of manual labor job. Unless you're doing that job, you're probably vitamin D deficient. You might be surprised how powerful an antioxidant that is. It's a precursor for numerous hormones. The vast majority of your sex hormones require vitamin D in order to be converted from cholesterol into either testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, whatever it might be. So to me, one of the big misses, people just aren't getting enough vitamin D. Obviously, you can get it in your food through things like cod liver oil, but it's just better to get it from the sun, and you'll find that it does better for your personality, your mood. Like I said, I wouldn't be wearing a shirt if I was actually doing this workout. In fact, I just put a shirt on to do the video for you guys. So what I personally will do, I'll go through and I will find a spot that is particularly tacky. Those hip flexors have a tendency of being very tacky. I'll go through and I'll read. While I read, I might do some hypoxia training. Hypoxia training is just you're forcing your body to deal without oxygen. Okay. There is a lot of benefits to that. In fact, there's a hypothesis that the reason why people get addicted to cardio is because they're addicted to the feeling that what it feels like not to have oxygen in your system, or at least to be operating under a deficit of oxygen. Some of those benefits include you actually do increase your cardiovascular capacity by working under a deficit of oxygen. There's another phenomenon, I've talked about this before in one of the other videos on the breathing video, of just creating that deficit of oxygen. It forces oxygen in those cells. It's actually a buildup of carbon dioxide that signals that those cells are going to require oxygen, so it allows for the oxygen to get shunted into those cells. There's another potential that could be occurring, which is that iron naturally causes you to age. Iron causes a rust oxidative stress. That's what rust is. Like if you ever seen an old beat up car that's all rusted, it's gone through oxidative stress. Your body's going through the same thing, and depending on the amount of iron that you have in your system will depend on how much your body naturally oxidizes. One of the things that we could do is we bind that iron to hemoglobin, and as your body produces more hemoglobin, more of that iron would get sequestered away into hemoglobin. More of that iron would get sequestered into hemoglobin. So all I'll do is I'll go through, I'll hold a position for as long as I can, and I generally want to hold that position for anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes. And I'll go through, I'll exhale as deep as I can. I'll read as far as I can before I need to take an inhale, and when I take an inhale, I only breathe through my nose. Okay, and then you should be able to recover that breath within 3 breaths. If not, you held a little bit too long, and just go through and next time decrease the amount of time that you hold that breath. Over time, that will improve over time. You'll be able to hold longer and longer and longer. After I've read a few pages, I've gone through a few cycles of that, we'll go over and I'll just hit one set of max reps calf raises. I'm just using a yoga block for this here, and I'm just going to do one single leg, and I'm going to do as many as I can. Your speed should be dependent upon how comfortable you feel with the strength of your Achilles tendon and how comfortable you feel with your calves. Most people really don't work calves. I really don't work a lot of calves with my clients. The primary reason for that is because one of the things I found when I did work calves with my clients is all of a sudden people's calves would be outrageously sore and they'd miss an entire week, even 2 weeks worth of a workout. So go slow, build it up, but it is something you should be able to tolerate over time. If you're unfamiliar with whether or not your calves can handle this, I'd go a nice, slow, moderate pace. For me personally, I go as fast as I can because I still play soccer, I still do sprints, I still do things that require some speed. I want to train those fast twitch muscle fibers. We're going as fast as possible. The two positions we're going to hit here are going to be one with a straight leg and two with a bent knee position to mimic that seated calf raise. And the difference there is that straight leg position is going to hit more of that gastroc. Your gastroc, there's two muscles that make up your calf muscles. You have your gastroc, which is that big meaty piece of calf that you actually see when you look at a picture of your calves or when you look at your calves in the mirror. And your soleus is the muscle that sits between that muscle and your shin bones. Okay? So one is your soleus is predominantly activated in the bent knee position, that second position I showed you. The gastroc is more that straight leg position. Okay? They're both important. Calves to be extremely important because your calves are referred to in fitness and in health as a second heart. And the reason why that is because your heart only pumps blood away from itself, from your heart. It's your muscles that pump it back up to the heart, and then it pumps it back out, and it's this whole cycle of it pushing away and your muscles contracting it back to that heart. Obviously, the lowest point in line is those calves. Your calves also play a massive role in removing lymphatic waste and getting rid of that lymphatic waste. We're going to go over some forearm stuff too as well, just one simple forearm exercise. But that forearms can help the same thing where a little bit of tone to those forearms and those calves help to push everything back into that heart and be recycled and be utilized in terms of lymph. It's able to get processed and removed from your body and get rid of all that waste products that was built up through your cells. Okay? So those are going to be the two exercises that we're going to do there. If you haven't done calves, or if you're not really familiar with what your calves are capable of, don't do max reps. Do 10 repetitions of each, and I would even separate those two. So I do right side, straight leg, left side, straight leg, right side, bent knee, left side, bent knee. Okay? I personally would do max reps, and then I'd finish off with some hand grippers. And they're just simple hand grippers. These ones are pretty lightweight. They go anywhere from 10 kilos up to 40 kilos. I can do quite a few of these. I have some, they're called iron grips. They're a lot heavier. So this one in pounds would be about 90 pounds. I have a set that go from 150 up to 350 pounds. The 350 pounds, like, you can't get them to touch each other. They're almost impossible. But for those of you guys who know me, know that I'm a strong believer that grip strength is extremely, extremely important. It's one of the greatest determining factors for longevity, as are calves too as well. And partially for reasons that I gave you before, partially because of the fact that as we get more veins and arteries built up away from our central core, you have a decrease of blood pressure. As you have more veins and arteries that are built up to supply blood to those muscles, what's going to happen over time is that it takes off some of that pressure off of your heart, off of all those veins and arteries that are more central in your core. Okay? So I'll go through a quick, easy round here, show you what it would look like, and then get back to reading and stretching. So we're just going to bounce. For a lot of you, I would suggest going a lot slower than what I'm going right now. I'm not even really worried about counting repetitions. I'm just going until it burns. And once it burns, I'm going to switch to that bent knee position. I would usually count reps on these just to make sure that I'm getting an equal workout on both my right and left side. I'm trying to contract as hard as I can. I'm trying to get up to the top of my toes as far as I can. I'm trying to squeeze as tight as I can. I'm trying to drop down as low as I can here too as well. If you're not sure whether or not your Achilles tendon can handle that, you do not want to rupture your Achilles tendon, I would guide nice and slow and slowly start to increase that range of motion downward here as far as you can. There is massive benefits, though, to increasing that range of motion through that Achilles tendon and through that calf. You do want that nice and strong, as strong as you could possibly get. All right, that's good. We'll get the opposite side. Like I said, because of the fact that I do some sprinting still, and I play soccer, I like to be able to have some decent speed to me left. I like to do these nice and fast. Fast will create a lot more muscular teardown and does increase that chance of injury. So there's nothing wrong with going nice and slow here. The only thing is, that's going to teach you over time to go slower. For most of you, that doesn't really matter that much. I wouldn't put that much emphasis on that. Once again, try to get all the way to your tippy toes as much as you can. And then we're going to bend the knee. All right. We're just going to finish off with some max reps hand grippers. We're just trying to grip as many times as we can before those forearms start to burn. While we do this, I'll talk a little bit. As we go through, you'll find that we're training a lot more than just my calves and my forearms. We're working on mobility. We're learning a little bit by reading during those sets. We're getting sunlight. We're getting the effects of grounding. I know I've spoken to a lot of you guys about grounding and how beneficial grounding is. It's one of those simple things. Just taking off your shoes, letting your feet be in contact with the ground can be very, very valuable. And it's something along the lines of a quarter of your bones in your body are in your feet and are designed to create stabilization in your feet. The average person wears shoes all day long, and those shoes now do the stabilization for you. And you're losing the benefit of all those little stabilizer muscles, and you wind up with upstream effects where now you have problems with your knees, now you have problems with your hips, now you have problems with your back, now you have problems with your shoulders, neck, whatever it might be. Just taking off those shoes every once in a while, letting those muscles activate, preferably if you could be in contact with concrete is semi-conductive. The grass is highly conductive though, so I would generally try to spend as much time on the grass as I can. I always do my yard work barefoot. Every once in a while I might step on a thorn from the rose bushes, but it's well worth it to me to be able to be in contact with the earth. You'll find that there's a cooling, calming effect. One of the phenomena that happens with that is you have a tendency, it's a phenomenon called entrainment, which is that the Earth's electromagnetic pulse just happens to be the exact same electromagnetic pulse of what's called alpha brain waves. It's that calming, cooling brain waves. And really that's what we're looking to do with this workout is stay calm, stay cool, de-stress, relax, get your blood pressure drop down by pulling blood away from your central core through your forearms, through your calves, and stay nice and loose. One of the things that a good friend of mine told me, who was a physical therapist for 17 years, is that stretching for 30 seconds at a time is fine for maintenance. But in order to create some true type of adaptation, a minimum of 2 minutes is required. So that's when I started reading while I stretch. And I'll spend 10-15 minutes in a single position, really hitting that position. One of my favorite quotes is from a guy by the name of Pavel Tsatsouline, who is credited for bringing the kettlebells to the United States. And somebody called him during an interview and said, I see you doing the side splits all the time. What do I need to do in order to get down my side splits? He said, side splits are easy. It's not a problem at all. You can do them in no time. He said, just go grab a book, get in that side split position, get down as deep as you can, spend 15 minutes there. After 15 minutes, ask yourself, can I sink a little bit deeper? If you can, sink a little bit deeper. If you can't, stay there. 2 hours a day, 6 months, you'll have the side splits down, no problem. Now, that's a bit extreme. I don't expect you guys to spend 2 hours a day, but the concept is you need to spend some time in that position. If those hip flexors are tight, which if you sit down for a living, I guarantee you those hip flexors are tight. you need to stretch those out, and you need to spend a decent amount of time in that position. You got to figure if you're spending 8 hours a day in this position, here, both knees in those positions, in order to stretch out that hip flexor, you might need more than 30 seconds here in order to get that nice, good, decent little stretch. But what I will do, and this is going to be my workout for the day, is I will read for 5 to 10 minutes, do a round, get the opposite side, read for 5 to 10 minutes on that opposite side, do another round. Find another position that feels tacky, that feels tight, that feels like it's just a little more bound up than I want it to be. I'll hang out there. I'll read. I'll work on my breathing techniques. I'll, if I'm not working on that hypoxia training where I'm holding my breath and seeing how long I could hold for, I might work on a box breathing that we talked about before. Breathe in on a 4 count, hold for a 4 count, etc., etc. Okay? All right, guys. Have a great workout.